When the regime of Syria's former president Bashar al-Assad was overthrown, what secrets did rebels uncover? Did they stumble upon hidden treasures or uncover embarrassing truths about the Assad family? The dramatic overthrow led to the discovery of shocking revelations, including family photos that painted a very different picture of the dictator. Among these images were some of Assad himself, half naked, a sight that sparked mockery across Syria. But there was much more to uncover. How deep did these hidden secrets run? And what did they reveal about Assad's life and his family's twisted and bizarre lifestyle? And how did these discoveries change the perception of the Assad family for the Syrian people? On December 8, 2024, Syria's once powerful regime finally crumbled. Bashar al-Assad had ruled for 24 years, following in the footsteps of his father, who ruled for nearly 30 years before him. Together, they held a firm grip on Syria for almost half a century. But nothing lasts forever. When the end came, Assad fled Syria in a hurry. Escaping with his wife and 3 children, he sought refuge in Russia, where they were granted political asylum. The sudden departure left behind a treasure trove of secrets, both material and personal. In his haste to flee, Assad managed to take only a fraction of his ill-gotten wealth, billions of dollars, but left behind many possessions, including items in his palaces. Rebels who stormed the palaces in Damascus and Aleppo believed these riches belonged to the Syrian people and should be returned. What they found, however, shocked everyone. Assad's palaces were a display of unimaginable luxury. A CNN journalist who entered the abandoned palace in Damascus was astounded by the opulence. Marble adorned the floors, ceilings were grand and ornate, and the furniture was lavish. But the real surprise came when the journalist entered the garage. Inside were dozens of luxury cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Cadillac CLS, a collection so vast it might have even made the Sultan of Brunei jealous. It was mind-boggling to think that Assad and his family had amassed such wealth, while the people of Syria suffered. For nearly 14 years, the country endured a brutal civil war, with millions struggling to survive while Assad lived like royalty. But it wasn't just the material wealth that was left behind. In addition to luxury cars, rebels also found family photo albums and personal documents. These revelations shattered the image that Assad had carefully cultivated over the years. For 24 years, Assad had built a reputation as a strict authoritarian leader. He portrayed himself as serious, powerful, and professional, always dressed in a business suit. Early in his rule, before the civil war, Assad was welcomed at international events where world leaders shook his hand. Even after the war began and Assad's true nature as a brutal dictator was exposed, he continued to present himself in formal attire, maintaining a carefully crafted image. But the photographs found in his abandoned palaces told a completely different story. Some of the most laughable images in Syria showed Bashar al-Assad in a completely different light. In several photos, he appeared half naked, only wearing underwear. One photo showed him shirtless, with a young woman sitting on his head. Her identity still remains unknown. In another, Assad stood in his kitchen, wearing only underwear and a tank top, a far cry from the polished dictator people were used to seeing. These bizarre and shocking photos led many to joke that Assad had a strange habit of posing half-naked, something that might have been influenced by his father, Hafez al-Assad, who ruled Syria for nearly 3 decades. Among the family photos was one of Hafez also posing in his underwear, showing off his muscles. The photo appeared ridiculous, and many Syrians found humor in it. But why did the Assads do this? Was it a strange way for them to feel powerful? A need to show dominance in the most private settings? Or was it just a quirk, an attempt to show off in front of their inner circle? Whatever the reason, these photos stripped away the carefully constructed image that Bashar al-Assad had tried to maintain for decades, exposing a side of him no one expected. Another photo that drew attention was one that showed Bashar al-Assad standing with his relatives. On the right side of the photo was his maternal cousin, Ahab Maf. At first glance, it appeared to be a typical family picture, but one detail immediately stood out. Ahab was wearing a t-shirt with Adolf Hitler's image on it. For much of the world, Hitler is remembered as one of history's greatest villains. He was responsible for starting the deadliest war of the 20th century and causing the deaths of millions. So why would Ahab wear such a shirt? Was it meant as a joke, a fashion statement, or something darker? It's hard to say for sure, but given the Assad family's history, this choice feels more symbolic than accidental. Like Hitler, Bashar al-Assad was seen as a ruthless dictator, and his regime was responsible for countless deaths during Syria's civil war. Whole cities were bombed, and civilians were left to starve or flee. The t-shirt could be a reflection of how the Assad family viewed themselves. Perhaps Ahab saw it as a way to display power or rebellion, or maybe it was a darker statement, showing admiration for authoritarian rule and control. Whatever the reason, the image painted a disturbing picture, drawing unsettling parallels between Assad's brutal regime and Hitler's cruelty. This seemingly casual family photo added another layer to an already dark legacy, and things only got darker from there. On December 7, 2024, just one day before Damascus fell into the hands of the Syrian opposition, Ahab Maf was tragically shot and killed while trying to flee the city. He was traveling with his brother, Yadmlau, and others when they were ambushed. Yad survived but was badly wounded. This wasn't an isolated incident. Many of Assad's relatives were left behind to face the wrath of the rebels. Assad, who had spent years assuring everyone that he would never leave Syria, was secretly making plans to escape. Years before the regime's collapse, Assad had already purchased nearly 20 luxurious apartments in Moscow. When the time came, he escaped with only his wife, Asma, and their 3 children. His uncles, cousins, and extended family were left behind to fend for themselves. This betrayal shocked many, even those who were loyal to Assad. For over 2 decades, he had portrayed himself as a strong leader who would stand by his family and his country. But when the moment of truth arrived, he abandoned everyone except for his immediate family. The relatives who had trusted him, supported him, and stood by his side were left unprotected, vulnerable to the chaos that followed. This act of abandonment revealed a lot about Assad's true character. For years, he had built his rule on fear and loyalty, demanding absolute obedience from those around him. Yet, when his own survival was at stake, he chose to save only himself and his immediate family. His cousins and extended family were sacrificed to ensure his escape. It's hard not to see this as an act of ultimate cowardice. Assad had always portrayed himself as a leader who would stand firm. But when the time came to prove it, he chose to run. But Assad's betrayal didn't stop with his cousins and extended family. He even abandoned his younger brother, Marhaz al-Assad, who had been one of his closest allies and a key figure in Syria's military. In the face of defeat, Assad's true nature came to light, and the legacy of his regime was forever stained by his cowardice. The photographs, the abandoned family, and the shocking revelations left behind in his palaces paint a chilling portrait of a man who ruled with fear but ultimately chose to flee when it mattered most.